And that's what I was, because I can't even do like the apple juice.
No, now I'm an administrator.
Oh, yeah.
I was a lobbyist in this role for a little while, and then now I kind of manage programs in the school.
Yeah, good, so.
This is water.
No.
Kombucha?
Kefir is
yeah.
the clear stuff.
Kefir was
Unfortunately
fun.
not.
Yeah.
Liquid yogurt.
No, I mean, someone's been telling me how good they are.
Oh, what's the
Apple orchard they have.
Yeah, who's
I haven't
John?
had it.
No water.
Oh,
That's
they are
fancy.
very
It's
good.
apples.
Oh,
I was wondering if,
No,
my
it's
boss
their,
brought
theirs
some
is
into
bread.
me,
You
oh,
know,
it's bread, like I
on
had
one
it.
basis, and it's uses like little Oregon uses.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what's the name of that? Fermented water, I don't think it's quite right.
I like fermented grain, you know, I know just.
There's another clearing fermented. All right, we're gonna begin. Thank you guys for being here. We're gonna take ourselves on a journey. So this is number 2. This morning we had a group full house in here too. So I appreciate you guys, whatever brought you here, interested you to do this. I am pulling most of my content of anything I learned from this book called Toxic Charity by Robert Lupton, and then kind of applying what God has done and experiences that I've had to lead me to my understanding, and I hope that I can just pour out some flesh and experience on how we love. You know, the concept of charity is very simply just loving somebody, caring for what they need, and doing it not for yourself or any gain that you might receive, but a charity is detached from sort of self-interest and love. And so we all, I think, desire that naturally. Like, we're drawn to wanting to help and jump in and serve and do that. We all kind of have that just built in. Some of us maybe less or more attuned to that. And so if there is a possibility of, if we could do it what we were hoping to help and then accidentally harming, we want to be aware of that, right? We want that to be, I would think that would be most people of goodwill and stuff want to make sure, hey, let's check that, you know? So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to pause and just pray and invite God to be a part of this, to be a part of my fumblings and mumblings and get what we need here. So Father God, I thank you for the gift that you have of loving us and showing us the great model of charity and how we desire to reciprocate and pour that out as we have first loved. And so we do that. And Lord, I thank you for the life, the experiences you've given to me. Help me to pour that out into this conversation, this presentation, and make it about what you want it about. Help me, or I pray that you give a right now word for each person in this room. There's a message that you have for them. I pray that that comes out in my words, or if you just make up for my lacking and give it directly, that would be amazing. So Holy Spirit, come in this room and come in this time, and we hand it all over to you. Thank you. Amen. All right, so it was 2002. I was at UW-Madison and going to school there, and I had just recently come to my faith, kind of had a conversion experience in college, and I was all gung-ho, and I had all of the right answers, and in my newfound faith, and I wanted to share with everyone. And I was also the person, I've always sort of been and still am drawn to, when I'm in an area, I'm drawn to someone who's sitting by themselves, or someone that is maybe stands out, if you will, and that's kind of been my natural there. So one day we were at the church in UW-Madison there, and I saw this gentleman who was sitting there by himself. I didn't recognize him, I didn't see him here before, so I just drawn, and with like 3 seconds we are best friends and chatting. And he's from Minnesota. He was just there visiting, and so we still are great friends today, and we've done a lot of crazy things together since then. So Dave Puente is his name, and so at one point later, a couple months later, I went up to see him in the cities and spent a weekend there, and we were just hanging out in his room, and we were getting all excited. We're like, we can't just be sitting inside, we have to get out there. He had just recently come to his faith too, and we gotta get out there and tell everyone, and we gotta save the cities, right? So everyone needs to know about Jesus, and so we just leave. We just get in his car. I'm the first time I think I went to the cities. He's not that familiar with the cities. We're like, we just go downtown and we're gonna tell everyone what we know. And of course, it's now like 10:30 when we start this. Like every college good idea start at 10:30 at night. And so we're walking downtown and we get parked there and we go. First, we got to go to the cathedral. So we go to the church. We need God to bless what we're gonna do. And so we walk up on the doors and on the steps and we're like, God, we need to talk to the priest. So we knock on the door of the church. Now it's probably 11:15, and nobody answers. And we just keep knocking, and somebody comes to the door. I don't know why they were there, but it wasn't the priest. And we said, we gotta, talk to the priest. We need a blessing. And they're like, he's not available right now. So we went out anyway. We thought we could do without that. And so we were just going up and down the streets and striking up conversations and talking and doing this gig, and really, as arrogant as possible. As we're walking, we come across Doug, and Doug is sitting there on the street. He's got a bag of food on one side and kind of the rest of his belongings on the other side, and he's sitting there on the corner, and we strike up a conversation, which became kind of apparent probably that we aren't the first people who came past trying to save him as well and sharing the message. He kind of had good canned answers for comments, and he had the good responses, and we sort of left going, he's not ready for what we have. And we leave, and we're walking back to our car. Now it's probably midnight, or later, actually, it was later. And so we're walking back to the car, and we both were, that wasn't right. How we treated Doug, we didn't care about him as a person. I didn't care about his story at all, and I just downloaded everything I thought that I had to give to him, and what I knew this was going to fix his biggest problems. And so we decided, we're like, no, we need to go and just hang out with Doug. And so we were almost back to the car, so we grabbed Dave's guitar. He's a phenomenal singer and guitar player, so we brought that back. We sat down next to Doug, and now it's like bar time, and so we just busted out for a couple of hours. I don't know if it was an hour or so, just worshiping and singing, and he busts out his harmonica, and he's singing along. He knows these songs, and we had this amazing, cool connection conversation. And at the end of it, he's just like, oh, you guys, I'm so sorry. Here you are, you're hanging out with me, and I'm so rude, I'm so sorry. I haven't shared any of my cookies with you guys. And so he opens up his bag of cookies and passes around these probably expired generic Oreo cookies. And it was beautiful. We kind of broke bread together, right? We kind of shared what experience that we had together. And that happened in my life, and I got to see that in how I responded and reacted. And so how does this connect? I don't know if it does, to toxic charity. This idea that charity, like I started off saying, we all want to, naturally, we're drawn to just respond. We see a need, we see something, and we want to jump in and we want to help. And our heart, and that's perfect, that's natural. Our heart says, like, do something, right? And we just do. And we want to rescue, and we want to move in. But sometimes when we do that, we can accidentally or unintentionally be hurting someone without even trying. And so what I hope we get out of the rest of it is that that charity should engage our heart, right? But it should also we should let it engage our mind. And how do we use our mind to love well? And that. So I was raised on a farm, and my parents are amazing. Grew up, I love the farm. I still go back to the farm. Hunting season's coming, so that's 9 days of freedom, and I get to hang out. And like, I don't talk to my brother Tim for 11 months out of the year, but in the last week, he's called me 3 times, and you got your deer license, and I'm out in the deer, and I just saw the rut is on, and so I'm like, it's on, right? And so my brother suddenly, you know, we're important to each other again. And I love going there. Growing up on the farm was awesome. My dad, I have some of the first memories, was so I think I was in 2nd grade, I know that, must have been 7. I must have got a good grade on a math test or something, and my dad comes in, he's like, all right, John, here's the farm checkbook. And he said, this is how you balance a checkbook, and then here's the bank statement. Now you gotta reconcile, and he taught me how to do that. And so from 2nd grade through some into college, I did the farm books, right? And I loved it. It totally geeking out all over the numbers, and like, in that time period, there's a really cool thing, like in that time period, the bank only made 2 mistakes. In that whole time. Like, I know, right? It wasn't bad for banking. And so I'm like totally geeking out, like down to everything, the numbers there. And it was amazing. And then that summer after 2nd grade, so I might have been turning 8 in August, and my dad, I had ridden along with my dad a lot on the tractors and taking and baling and combining and things like that. And so it was raking hay time. And so he takes me out to the field, he puts me on the tractor, and like, I'm 7, so I can't, like, I have to stand, and I don't think I have the strength to even actually push the clutch down. So it was a International 574 cabless tractor. He sets me on there. He has the tractor going in the right direction. We got a side rake on the back, and he said, all right, so he's holding up the clutch in his hand. He's like, I'm gonna let go of the clutch. When you get to before you hit the trees, you turn around, and then you come back. And he's like, you just rake the field, and then, you know, if you get in a problem, or if when you're done, you pull that lever down and shut the tractor off, because I couldn't shift at this point. I couldn't put it in neutral. I didn't have the power to push the clutch down, right? So I did it, and I just drove off, and I raked the whole field a couple hours, and that whole summer I was raking. And my dad still is amazing at building capacity in a person. He sees somebody that you have the potential, you could do it, and now like he takes a risk, and that capacity is growing. Like, it would have been years, or I might never have learned a checkbook thing, right? But my dad sees that I could, or I might have the potential to do it, and he says, go for it. And I remember, like, the feeling I got was, my dad thinks I can do this, so I better do it, you know? And that capacity allowed me to, like, the work ethic, the energy, the value that was given blew up at such an early age, and he still is. It's awesome to see my dad do that. And I mean, like, I ran into trees, I flipped the tractor over. My dad has 2, so it's not a big deal, right? But part of it is risky, right? When you let someone go, it's risky, and but that capacity building that my dad gave to me is huge and valuable when it comes to how we love and share. When we give to somebody freely, and we just give to them, and we expect nothing back, and it's just a free one-way gift. Here's a transaction, poor person, I'm going to give it to you. We inadvertently we create this power separation. We are the dominant person, right? And we make all the rules that our gift aligns by, and we actually also create the expectation for gratitude. And so the giver remains in the powerhouse seat, and the receiver remains in the submissive recipient seat. And that's a one-way kind of transaction, and that's unhealthy. There is no built for capacity. There's no allowing for a person to do and give themselves. And that's a core kind of what we're going to talk about is toxic. When what's so interesting in our world now is our country, our world is at this point, more money, more time is given. Yeah, no, it's fine. You can do whatever you want. I taught middle school and high school. distracted. But anyway, where was I?
In the building.
Capacity, problem with toxic charity,
One-way transaction.
I mean, yeah, so,
That's what I want to break down, I know.
yeah, shoot.
Dominating power.
Dominant power, though, I had to transition into the next thing.
Sorry,
Amy, you blew it.
guys, I did, but the capacity building was so important.
It was good.
Yeah.
I will bring that back.
Capacity building,
What's that?
lose the ability for capacity building.
Yeah, we're getting there. One-way expectations, parity, okay, whatever. Oh, yeah, so we live in the country right now where more than ever, more money, more time, people are generously giving and donating, than ever before. And that is amazing. We are moved to give. Humans have always been to give, and we get good feelings when it happens. And but on the flip side too, we also live in a time when poverty rate is at its highest it's ever been, and the gap is getting larger. It's growing, and so it causes us to pause and say, is our outpouring of generosity working? Is it working? If it's working, the results don't show it. The results kind of show the opposite. And so that gap should cause us to engage our mind and go, what's wrong? Why is our charity, churches, business, governments, like that, the way we give aid and charity doesn't seem to be working. It actually seems to be working against the goals. Why is that? So, and if we continue in this toxic charity, how does charity become toxic, right? If we have Mary here and we see Mary and we're like, she's hungry, and I'm moved and I just go grab a donut and I give Mary a donut, right? She's fed, and my heart was moved, there's a hungry Mary, and then I look over, oh my goodness, Tom is hungry, and then I want to help Tom and feed Tom. Now Mary's back hungry again, so I have to go feed Mary, and Mary comes back every day to get more food from us. There's this, what started off as an initial good gift became degraded down to a dependency, right? And then we look up and we go, there's Toms, and now I see a whole bunch of Mary and Toms in our community, and I have to create a system. And the best way to do that is really super efficient, because what sells when I'm talking to other folks is, hey, I can feed 50 Toms and Marys for $1. And you go, wow, let's do that. But how can that be possible except for all the Toms and Marys have to get into an unnamed line orderly, and I have to move big semis and things, and it becomes so impersonal, so structurized, and because what drives charity is efficiency and numbers and most fed per dollar, and none of that equals human, right? None of that equals human, and so what starts off as generous or kind and loving degrades down to something that's toxic, right? So Mary is used to getting in line and getting something, and now Mary's daughter sees this, and you can see that now suddenly we have a toxic relationship, and Tom suddenly goes, I saw Mary do that, I'm gonna do that, and we get used to this, and nothing is expected, so we can see that kind of toxic, and it just breeds, right, over and over. Within toxic charity, and I got to see this, and I also want to pause here and say, anything you'll hear this later on too, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. It's just all, we make mistakes, and anything I really learned is basically making a mistake and then trying to adjust, and then hopefully correcting some things. So we're all trying to figure this out together, but what we saw for the meal, for example, here at 6-8, is we started off and they received the first time we ever had a meal, right? And it was, wow, this is amazing, thank you, and there's treats and there's coffee and then there's meal, and then the next time, and you can see this, Robert puts this in, there's a kind of a progression, right? So the first time you give somebody something for free and you expect nothing back, the natural response is gratitude. The second time you do that, the natural response isn't like an expectation that it's gonna happen a third time. And the third time and the fourth time you do that, suddenly there becomes not just an expectation, but an entitlement. So when something changes, last week we had bananas. I don't like pears. And literally that happened. We changed, like there's something that wasn't available at the meal, and someone came up to me and they said, where was this? This always was a part of the this. And I was like, yeah, we don't have that. And 3 weeks ago, we had no meal. You know, like, aren't you still grateful? And so my mind was like, whoa, what's happening here? And then you continually give that fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh time. Expectation leads to entitlement. Entitlement leads to dependency. And after a while, suddenly, the person that receives can't live without that gift. They're dependent on it. And now we've created a problem. And a toxic relationship is dependent on need. And sometimes it's led by the giver. Sometimes givers bring this sort of ingrained that I need you to need me. And so if I solve your need and you no longer need me, we no longer have a relationship. That's very toxic, right? If a relationship is built on a need, you're gonna either require that need in order to stay in a relationship, or the person's gonna have to keep finding a new need if they wanna keep that relationship going. And that's toxic. Like friends, family should never, relationships should never be built on need. They should be built on each other's mutual love and relationship and desire to be together, and not one person needing the other person to fulfill. And so that kind of degrades. You can see how that one-way transactional charity can easily degrade. Yeah. Another negative side effect of toxic charity is the poor person, or the person, the recipient, remains on the outside of the process, right? And so never brought in. All of the resources, all of the rules, all of the structure is owned by the giver, or the person with power. And toxic charity never lets the recipient on the inside. And so that separates. Now the giver and the receiver is removed, and the receiver and the giver continues to solve a problem that they may have wrong, right? If we don't involve the recipients on the solution, in on the rules, in on the planning, in on the structure, in on supporting, sustaining the charity, the program, whatever, after a while, you might be really wrong on what you're trying to solve, because we've never listened. We've never opened up. We stopped. Maybe it started with listening, and now we've separated that. So a week ago, or a week and a half ago, I'm supposed to be planning this talk, and Sarah even put it on the calendar, because it was not on the calendar. I'm not going to do it. She is taking care of the kids. It's all planned. I'm going to be I have a couple of hours here on a day we're closed, and then I get a phone call. The 6A's get a phone call from Dodie Parker, and Dodie Parker says, I'm sitting at McDonald's, and I just happened to be in here, and I noticed this guy. He didn't really look, very well dressed or whatever, so I went up and talked to him, and he's homeless, turns out he's homeless, and I was with my granddaughter. He needed a ride, and I just thought I could call you guys, and you would fix it. Maybe fix the call, and so I'm like, I see the message, and I'm thinking, I'm not supposed, what are you supposed to do with homeless people? I'm reading this book, I can't help you one way. What are you gonna give me? You're kind of running through town. What do I do? And I'm thinking, I don't have time to help someone in need. I'm planning a talk on charity, So I'm like, I'm like mentally just like, I don't know what to do. So it's over an hour. I gotta eat first. I can't help someone on an empty stomach. So, I gotta eat, and then after lunch, I'm like, I gotta just go to McDonald's. Like, okay, this person's gonna still be sitting at McDonald's. Hopefully they're gone. I'm doing my duty. I'm going into the door, and out walks the dude who is like all dressed in black and real shaggy, and I'm like, I can't be him. I'm not gonna ask. Are you the homeless guy? So I walk in. I'm like, maybe that's not him. I'm just gonna check if he's still sitting on the table that Dodie described. If no one's sitting there, then I know that I wasn't supposed to help him. That was my sign. So I walk in. Oh, no one there, and I'm looking, and like the person at the register is clearly like, what are you doing here? I'm not going to eat. And I'm thinking, and so was there a gentleman in here? And I just say that, and she's like, yep, he just left, just walked out, and I know why you're here. And I'm like, she knew me. And so she I'm like, okay, fine. Now I go back out, and he's already like walking up the street, walking north on 12. I was like, this is weird. I run after him, you know, hey, homeless guy. And so I jump in the car and I pull into the parking lot ahead and roll on the window. I'm like, hey. I was like, hey, were you just in McDonald's? And he's like, yeah. And I said, so someone called me, Dodie, she talked to you for a while. I was like, yeah, I remember Dodie. You know, now it's like sleeting. And I was like, want to come in my car so we can finish this conversation? Now we're going to do this. Anyway, we process, we get on the phone, we're trying to call a shelter. He's looking for a space. And the details of what's happening is not that important. And like, we gotta go, basically, I call Sarah, I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You know, do I give him $50 so he can stay in a hotel tonight? You know, like, I don't have $50, you know? Do I let him bring him into our house? I got 3 kids, you know? I don't know this guy. But he doesn't, he wants to go to Baraboo. That's what he wanted. He wanted to drive to Baraboo, and I tried to get him like Portage or someplace to spend the night, and he needed to, whatever. So I'm driving him to Baraboo, and this whole time I'm thinking, I'm supposed to be playing my talk. And I'm like, so I dedicate this time to prepare for this talk. And so we get all the way up, he wants to get to St. Vinny's in Baraboo, and I drop him off, and I'm like, and we're talking and trying to help him, you know, hear his whole story of why and where he's at and what he's doing. And I'm like, Matthew, I don't know what we're supposed to do here, you know, and like, I wish I knew and help. He's like, no, it's great. And so I say, okay, well, good luck, you know? And he's getting out, and he's like, oh, sorry, so sorry. I have $5 left. I can help you cover gas for driving me up here. And I'm like, I just read, I can't do one-way transactions, so do I have to take the money? You know, like, am I required to do good charity? Like, am I degrading him if I say you have nothing to give me? And I'm like, I'm like, no, Matthew, like, wow, that's really cool, it's really thoughtful. I don't need the money, but what, could you do me a favor? And could you take that money or do something and pass on, like, whatever you thought, if you felt like I did you something, just share it, pass it on, and give, you know, maybe a helping hand to someone you meet on your journey. And I left, and I drove back, and I still today don't know what I should have done or where. And I share that story because 2 reasons. One, both Doug and Matthew expressed something very clear. Nobody wants to be a charity case. Nobody wants to be treated with a handout. Nobody wants that. And so when we do that, we force them to remove their dignity, right? We take a little bit of their dignity away when we apply and we participate in these one-way transactions. I also share that story in charity is really messed up and complicated, and I'm not going to tell you how to do it, you know, because I don't know what I'm doing, right? But what I hope that your heart jumps into the car and you run into McDonald's. I hope then your head goes, John really messed me up, because now I don't know if I should give him money, not give him money. But I hope that begins to deepen your charity in the head. It allows you to engage your head and your mind, and it forces you to practice charity. We really, it came at my first presentation, really this charity thing is more like a dance, right? And it's more like we're really in a middle school era where, like, you don't know what to say, you don't know where to put your hands, and we're trying to do this dance of charity, but at least fumbling in middle school is a whole lot better than just blindly ignoring it and just keep throwing charity blindly into an anonymous line, right? And I hope that we like, wow, I want to dance this charity thing, and so the last negative thing on this toxic charity is this: when we continually respond with an emergency response to a chronic problem, it's going to create negative results. What I mean by that is, So a hurricane happens in a country, right? And there's bleeding and there's people dying and there's food and we should come in, we should rush in, and here's free food, here's free clothing, we're gonna just help you, here's a Band-Aid, we have to stop the bleeding. But when the bleeding stops, if we continue to do for somebody what they can do themselves, we create this toxic charity, right? Just because the emergency response is good in an emergency situation, I think at core, our charity, we continually to just use crisis responses for chronic problems. And free one-way giving only should be reserved for crisis, right? And when someone has the capacity or the potential, like my dad can see, the capacity to do it on their own, we need to give them permission and support, a little bit of guidance. Don't hit a tree. If you do, my dad never blew up at me. We're just gonna get you back on the tractor and we're gonna go.
Doesn't do any good anyhow.
No, and build a person's capacity. If we just continue to give one-way giving, we never allow for that capacity to grow. And so toxic charity, and that poses this question, right? So then when I'm in my car with Matthew, is toxic charity better than no charity at all, right? You don't know, we only know how to do one-way giving, and we do that. And you're presented with this situation, and so, well, at least toxic charity is better than doing nothing, right? No, I don't think so. This is maybe a poor analogy, but if in ancient older medicine, they practiced this thing called bloodletting. They did, when someone got sick or they got some explained whatever, it was understood that it was in their blood. So if we let out blood, then we'll let out the disease and then the body can heal. And if it didn't work, we just let out more blood. We just keep letting out blood until they fix. Well, they were wrong, right? We don't longer, I don't know if anyone does, but we shouldn't be practicing bloodletting anymore. We have things like blood transfusions, where we transfer blood, right? So we have a new understanding, but the question was, to put the analogy back, if we don't know a better way, should we keep bloodletting? No. Many of those people that died from bloodletting, the cold would have just cured themselves. They made a mistake. And just because you don't know a better answer doesn't mean you should just make a mistake. And so I don't think toxic charity, even if you have no other, I think it's better to just do nothing. Now, I'm not proposing you do nothing. I'm proposing we engage our brain. I'm not proposing that we don't try and make mistakes, but that we try to avoid, if at all possible, toxic charity. And I hope as you dance this dance, you begin to realize, ooh, that was toxic. Oh, that wasn't. I'll avoid that. I'm gonna go